What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. And on today's video I am going to be counting down my top 10 video games of all time. Now, those who have been following me long enough know that as much as I love movies, I'm also a big video game fan. I've been playing video games since I could pick up a controller, back in the very first in Nintendo days, back in the late 80s, all the way through to Mega Drive, PlayStation 1s, the list goes on. I've been playing games literally since I could hold a control pad. So this list is very diverse. There's a lot of different things on here from past, present, and I'm excited to share this list with you guys. Now, I wanted to do this video for a while. I put it on a bit of a back burner, but it wasn't until Jordan from Movie Worm put out his top 10 video games of all time, which sort of started getting the cogs in my head working and putting together my own list. But before we crack on with the top 10, I just want to put a few honourable mentions in there because this was a hard list to put together. I've tried doing top 10 movie lists and I can't do it. Like, there's so much that I love. Video games, there's loads that I love, but there's loads that have stuck with me for the majority of my life, and that is what you'll see on this list. These are the games that have literally stuck with me. You know, there's games out there that I still love but I just haven't played in a long time. These ones I try and pick up at least, you know, once every couple of years, even the older ones. But getting on to the honourable mentions, my first honourable mention is Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater on the PS2. Now, I'm a massive Metal Gear Solid fan, especially the first four. Number 5 sort of shit the bed a bit, in my opinion. It looked beautiful, but I'm a story-based gamer, which you were going to hear a lot in this video. But the story to Metal Gear Solid 5 wasn't all that great. The story to Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, which was a prequel to the first game, was incredible. It took us back to the Cold War in the 1960s, I believe. The game was dressed up as sort of like a early 60s James Bond style video game, set in the Metal Gear Solid world. It was explaining a lot of backstory to the original game, and I just ate it up. It was an incredible game. My second honourable mention is Devil May Cry on the PS2. Now, some of you may or may not know that Devil May Cry was originally supposed to be Resident Evil 4, but Capcom sort of realised that the game was going a bit too, you know, out of the way of Resident Evil, so they decided to repackage it into a new IP of their own called Devil May Cry. And I remember getting this when I first got a PS2 for Christmas, the year it come out, and I got Devil May Cry with it, and I was absolutely blown away by it. You got Dante, who's like a devil hunter, and you basically just go into a castle and you're just hacking and slashing in all cool stylistic ways. All the demons, all the ghouls, all the ghosts, and it's just a fun pick up and play game. It's not difficult, but it's very stylistic and very anime style, which, if you guys know me, I love my anime. So yeah, Devil May Cry is my second honourable mention. My third honourable mention is Final Fantasy X for the PS2. Final Fantasy is one of my favourite video game franchises. I love Japanese role-playing games. Final Fantasy X come out on the PS2, and it sort of brought the franchise to a more cinematic approach. It gave the characters voice acting, which they hadn't had before. I fell in love with the characters, the story, and it's just an incredible world to sort of get lost in when you're playing that game. Now, if anyone is watching this who is around my age, you will know that we just don't get enough time to play video games anymore like we used to back in the day. But Final Fantasy X is a game that I will make time for. I sort of replay it every couple of years, and I just love it. So yeah, they're my honourable mentions. They're the games that nearly made it on the list, but I had to bump them off for some of my other favourite ones that are on here. So let us crack on with my top 10 video games of all time, starting with number 10. Coming in at number 10 is Mortal Kombat Trilogy on the PS1. Now, Mortal Kombat Trilogy was basically the first 3 Mortal Kombat games all packaged into one for the PlayStation 1, where you could pick any of the characters from any of them games, any of the costumes, any of the stages, and basically do your dream matchups. You can pick whoever you want. You can do whatever you want in the Mortal Kombat world. And as a fan of the franchise, I just ate that game up. Now, I like Street Fighter, but Mortal Kombat has always sort of took the top spot for beat 'em up games for me, for fighting games. And I remember Mortal Kombat Trilogy coming out for the PS1, and I literally would spend night after night after night on it. I'd have friends over on weekends, sleepovers, whatnot. We just smash Mortal Kombat all evening, and yeah, it's a game that's always stuck with me. So that is my number 10, Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Coming in at number 9 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo. Now, I was a big Ninja Turtles fan as a kid. I remember playing the arcade game constantly. Anytime I could get to an arcade, whether it be Blackpool or Rill or whatever, whenever there was a Turtles arcade game, I was there popping my money in, absolutely spending a fortune on it. And then I got to play Turtles in Time, which is basically a sort of compressed version of the arcade game for home consoles, where you can pick one of the 4 turtles. You can have 2-player. It's a side-scrolling beat 'em up, and you basically just go through the levels, taking on the foot soldiers, taking on the enemies from the animated TV series, and you were basically going through. Your characters were sort of sent back in time to go through all different mad levels. But I'm a big sucker for side-scrolling beat-em-ups, and this is one of the best that's ever been made. If you're a fan of the Ninja Turtles, you owe it to yourself to play Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. So that is why that is at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is our favourite blue hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and Knuckles attached. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I will explain. Back in the day, back in the olden days, when we had the Sega Mega Drive, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 released, and then a year later, Sonic and Knuckles released, 2 separate games. But Sonic and Knuckles basically had sort of like a slip where on top of the cartridge where you could then take Sonic 3 and put it on top, put the whole game into your system, and it would be one big gigantic Sonic the Hedgehog adventure. And again, this game, I just was on it constantly as a kid. Literally, I would complete it, go back, do it again, go back, do it again. Sonic the Hedgehog, everyone knows who Sonic the Hedgehog is, man. He is one of the biggest gaming icons of all time. But this game, Sonic Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles combined, was just a sort of love letter to the whole entire franchise that had come before it. And you could do so much in it, and it was such a big game, but you just couldn't get off it. It was incredible. And I always remember trying to collect all the Chaos Emeralds in the special stages so you could become Super Sonic, and then you could do it again, the harder levels, to get more, and then you'd become Hyper Sonic. It was an incredible game, and I could still play it to this day. So that's why that is at number 8. Coming in at number 7 is another one of my favourite Mega Drive games of all time, and it is RoboCop versus the Terminator. Now, I remember playing this game at a time where I was first started getting into RoboCop, Terminator, all those sort of 80s action movies, and this game hit me at the right time. And it's basically, again, another sort of side-scrolling shooter where you're playing as RoboCop, just going through all the levels, taking down criminals, taking down endoskeletons, Terminators, going into the future to try and take down Skynet. Very easy game, but if you are a fan of any of them properties, RoboCop or Terminator, you will enjoy this game. And I keep looking down because I've actually still got it here. I've still got my copy of it, RoboCop versus the Terminator. I absolutely love this game, and it is violent as well. It's one of the first violent games I ever played. I'm pretty sure I played this before the original Mortal Kombat, And I think this was the first time I'd ever seen sort of blood in a game. And I was like, whoa, it was seeing a bit of the future early on in my life. But yeah, RoboCop vs. the Terminator, one of my favourite games of all time. So that is why it is at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is Batman Arkham City, which was the sequel to Batman Arkham Asylum on the PlayStation 3, and then they put it onto the PlayStation 4. But I'm a big Batman fan, and this was the sequel to one of the best Batman game ever made. Arkham Asylum it sort of come out of nowhere, and it was made by a company I'd never heard of, but it sort of resurrected my fandom for Batman along with the Dark Knight movies. And it's dark, the game's dark, it's gritty, it's a dead, hard-hitting Batman story. It's not a kid's game, it's quite violent. The character designs were incredible. All the villains were amazing. Rocksteady basically put their own spin on the Batman mythos and the characters and their design, and they looked incredible. And there's some of the designs for some of the characters in the Batman games, the Arkham games, and now sort of some of my favourite interpretations of them. That's how much I enjoyed it. But Arkham City hit, and it basically expanded on everything that Arkham Asylum did correctly and just cranked it up. And it's just an incredible sequel to an incredible game. And it is easily the best for me out of the entire Arkham series. And it is on this list because I am a big Batman fan, and it is easily one of the best Batman games ever made, if not the best Batman game ever made. Coming in at number 5 is Streets of Rage 2 for the Sega Mega Drive. Now again, this is another game that landed and hit me at the right time. It was one of the first games I got for the Sega Mega Drive, and I've still got fond memories of my friends coming around on the weekend, and we 2-player it, team up, co-op, and it's basically you pick a variety of characters, one of the variety of characters who are like police officers, and you're basically going through the streets in all different levels, just beating up all the criminals and trying to find one of your partners who's been kidnapped. But what I loved about Streets of Rage is that, again, it was quite a violent game for the time. You could literally pick up baseball bats and crowbars and glass bottles and hit your enemies with them. And this was a game that come out before, video games started having certificates on them, and, 15 or 18 or whatnot. And for the time, it wasn't a bloody game, but it was violent. It always felt like dead, dark and violent video game to be playing, which is probably why I loved it. But yeah, Streets of Rage 2 is a game I can pick up and play anytime. I have it on my phone still. I've got it on my laptop. I've still got the game on my Mega Drive, but it's packed away somewhere. But Streets of Rage 2 is easily one of my favourite games of all time, and I can literally play it anytime, any place, and enjoy it like I did back in the day. So that is why Streets of Rage 2 is at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is The Last of Us on the PS3. Now, I remember hearing about this game before it come out. Knew it was made by Naughty Dog, who are the people behind the Uncharted games, and we basically got wind that they were making a sort of zombie apocalypse style game in the sort of same vein as the Uncharted games. And straight away, as soon as I heard that, I was like, take my money all day long. But it wasn't until I got hold of that game, picked up the controller for the first time, started playing it, and you knew from the first 10-15 minutes of that game you were going to be going on a emotional roller coaster. Spoilers for The Last of Us. If you've never played it, I apologise. The game basically starts when the zombie apocalypse is all kicking off. Your character Joel, I've got your daughter, and you're basically trying to get out the city. It's all going to shit, and you end up running into a couple of soldiers who are trying to sort of, keep everything under wraps. And they think your character Joel's daughter has been infected, and so they shoot her dead in the first 10 minutes of this game. and then you see your character Joel just break down, start crying, and then the screen just goes to black and it comes up The Last of Us. And you knew then you were going to be in for a hell of a ride. I just love the environments of The Last of Us. I love the gameplay. I love the cast of characters you meet on your adventure. When you come in contact with Ellie, who's the little young 12-year-old girl who is immune to the virus or the disease that's infecting everyone, and you basically have to take her across country to a hospital where they think they might be able to come up with a cure. And you're just going on this adventure with these two characters, going cross country. You're watching these two characters, Joel, who had lost his daughter, and Ellie, who was sort of like a daughter figure for Joel, and they were butting heads, and they were Joel was learning to sort of take her in, and it's just an emotional roller coaster from start to finish, and it's easily now one of my favourite games of all time, and I cannot wait to see what they do with the Last of Us TV series that should be coming out next year with Pedro Pascal in. I'm hoping that they adapt that really well, and I think that could be a special TV series once it lands. So yeah, that is why The Last of Us is number 4 on my list. Coming in at number 3 is Metal Gear Solid on the PS1. Boy, this was another game that just knocked it out of the park. I remember playing the demo for this game before it come out, and it absolutely blowing my mind. It was the first sort of stealth game that I'd ever played. I remember actually it being really difficult when I first played it, because I wasn't used to that style of playing gameplay and sneaking away from enemies rather than just going in guns blazing. But once you got your head around it, you got wrapped into this absolute incredible story, this incredible cast of characters. Solid Snake taking on Foxhound, you had Liquid Snake, Revolver Ocelot, Raven, Sniper Wolf, amongst others. And the game was so cinematic. Again, it was another game that was so far ahead of its time. It felt like you were playing an interactive movie. The cutscenes were so immersive. You could literally put your pad down when a cutscene hit and just sit back and relax and watch it like you're watching a movie. It was that good. And it spawned a lot of sequels which were excellent as well. Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, I love. Snake Eater, which was one of my honourable mentions, love. Sons of the Patriots on the PS4 was incredible. Wasn't a big fan of Metal Gear Solid 5, but we won't talk about that. But the original one just absolutely blew my mind. It is the best looking game on the PlayStation 1, in my opinion. It was just a game changer for video games. I thought it was showing the future of what we could do in the video game medium. And Hideo Kojima, the creator of Metal Gear Solid, really needs to get back to sorting out another Metal Gear Solid game, because we haven't had one for a good while now, and I am missing my boy Solid Snake. Coming in at number 2 is Resident Evil 2, my favourite of the Resident Evil franchise. This game again just blew my mind when it come out. I was a big fan of the original Resident Evil. The first Resident Evil was one of the first games I got for the PlayStation 1 when it first come out. Absolutely fell in love with it. Scared the hell out of me as a kid. And then I remember the sequel coming out, and again, it's the sequel that just does everything better than the original. They took everything that was good about the original Resident Evil game and just cranked that baby up. Introduced us to new characters, Leon and Claire. It took the scenario from a mansion, like a creepy mansion from the original game, to the streets of Raccoon City, to underground subways, to labs. It added more enemies, more story. It's just an incredible game. What I loved about it is the fact that you could play through the two characters. You could do, say, Leon first, then Claire second, or the other way around. And then, depending on which one you do second, you sort of get the final, ultimate ending, the best ending. all that good stuff. Resident Evil 2, again, is a game I can play over and over and over again and not get bored. It's a game, actually, that I know like the back of my hand. I can just sort of put it on and just know it. My brain just does the work for me. I just know exactly what I'm doing. Loved the remake as well. When I'm talking about Resident Evil 2, you know, it could be the PS1, the remake, I'm just talking about the story. I'm a story gamer, I keep saying. But Resident Evil 2, the actual, the story is more what I'm talking about. The remake absolutely knocked it out of the park as well. It's one of my favourite remakes of all time. When I play Resident Evil 2 remake, it's weird because I play it like, when I look at it, I'm like, this is sort of how I envisioned the original when I sort of watched it as a kid, when I was playing it as a kid. And they've like fully realised that world with more modern, up-to-date graphics, and it is a stunning game, the remake of Resident Evil 2. So yeah, Resident Evil 2 is number 2 on my top 10 games of all time. And last but not least, coming in at number 1 on my favourite video games of all time is the greatest Japanese role-playing game ever to be created. It is Final Fantasy VII. Now, I remember playing this game for the first time and just being lost in the story, just being sucked into that game. I absolutely fell in love with the characters, the world, the story, everything about that game. It was a game that, when I first played it, I didn't understand it, because the gameplay to it, because it was the first time I'd ever played a Japanese role-playing game, sort of like a turn-based strategy game, turn-based role-playing game, sorry. And it just took me a while to sort of get my head around how to play it. But once I'd sort of figured it out, it had me. I was absolutely enthralled with that game. I've always said about Final Fantasy VII that it is one of the best pieces of literature, if you like, ever created, whether it be film, TV series, video game, book, comic, whatever. However the story, whatever you can get storytelling in, Final Fantasy VII is one of the greatest stories ever told, in my opinion. I think it's a fucking masterpiece from start to finish. I love the cyberpunk world of it. I love the complex story, all the twists and turns. It's a long game. You can take you for like 30, 40, 50 hours, depending on, how much you want to do with the game. But you just get lost in the world of Final Fantasy VII. No Final Fantasy game since it or before it is as good as it, in my opinion. It is the greatest Japanese role-playing game of all time. I love the remake that come out the beginning of last year. Absolutely fell in love with that. They basically took everything that I loved about the PS1 game and sort of brought it to modern times, modern graphics, modern music, modern gameplay. And there was times, and I'm probably going to get slack for saying this, there was times when I was playing Final Fantasy Remake where I nearly started crying, because it just was taking me back to being a kid, before there was any worries in the world, money problems, whatever. It absolutely just made me feel like a kid again. And I always say about things like that, if anything can make you feel like a kid again before you had any worries in the world for a few hours, I can take my money all day long. Final Fantasy VII. And I keep looking down, because I've actually still got my original strategy guide for it, and just looking at it, it's even got my name in it, and just looking at it just brings back such fond memories of just sitting up night after night, just, when you could do that as a kid, you could just sit up all night playing games and just no worries in the world, just get on with this game, and just being lost in the story. It is without a doubt my favourite video game of all time, and I could talk about it for hours, but I'm not going to, because we need to wrap this video up. So yeah, Final Fantasy VII is my #1 video game of all time. Anyway guys, that'll do it for this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Comment down below some of your favourite video games of all time. Comment down below if you agree or disagree with anything on my list. Anything you want to talk about down there, guys, because you know I like to talk to you down there in the comment section. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel for more content, and as always, I hope to see you guys again soon. Take it easy. Ta-ra.